Hi guys, this is our first required assignment, assignment 7.5. So this is the video to correspond with the PDF notes that I've already given you. You do not have to take your own notes, just follow along, but feel free to write down anything that might be helpful for you for the next quiz. So this is note 7.5 on friction. And friction is a force that opposes motion between two surfaces that are touching. So it's resisting motion. So in order for an object to keep moving, a constant force must be applied. Now, when forces are unbalanced, an object will accelerate, whether it's speeding up or slowing down. The force that's moving forward is greater than the force of friction. So in order to overcome the force of friction, the force that is moving it forward must be greater than the force of friction. And so here we have a car, and this smaller arrow is the force of friction opposing the motion, and it's going in the opposite direction of the motion while the taxi is speeding forward. So it's the forward motion of this taxi is overcoming or greater than the force of friction. Okay, so let's say you're in the car and you hit cruise control at 60 miles per hour. So that car is at a constant speed, okay? The force moving forward is balanced by the force of friction. So it's not slowing down and it's not speeding up. It's balanced currently when it's going the same speed. Okay, so the friction is balanced by the forward motion. Now, let's say you park your car on a hill. Okay, it's on a car is or an object is on an incline. Now, gravity wants to roll that downwards, whichever way it's going. It wants to pull that object downwards. However, if the car is not moving, and hopefully it's not, and your car's not rolling off the hill, the force of friction from the brakes of that vehicle will balance the force of gravity, and therefore then the car is not moving. Okay, so if gravity is pulling, in order for that object to not move, the friction of the brakes have to balance that force of gravity. All right, so first let's talk about static friction. Static friction is just the friction that exists between a stationary object or an object that is not moving and the surface on which it's resting. So your computer or whatever you're watching this on, if it's sitting on a desk or some type of surface, if it's not moving, we're talking about static friction. So that's the friction in between the object and whatever it's sitting on if it's not moving, okay? So static friction resists the start of the sliding motion, okay? So let's say you take your desk and you kind of lean it to one side. If your computer isn't moving, all right, that's because the force of or static friction is resisting the start of that sliding movement. It's holding that computer down. Now, static friction is very strong because objects want to stay stationary. They don't want to move. Next, we're going to talk about kinetic friction. So first is static friction, which is not moving. And kinetic friction is once it's moving, okay, it's the friction that opposes the movement. Okay, so it's preventing the movement or it's slowing down the movement. So once it's moving, let's say I take a wooden block and I slide it across the table, that friction is going to start to slow the block down and then it's going to stop. And that's kinetic friction because it's already in motion. Now, the three types of kinetic friction are sliding friction, rolling friction, and fluid friction. Okay, so once it's in motion, you have these three options here. So, sliding friction is simply just objects are sliding past one another. So, you take a wooden block and you're sliding it across the surface. Rolling friction is literally what it's called rolling. So, you have a ball or you have wheels and it's rolling over a flat surface. And then you have fluid friction, and that's when an object is moving through air. And we have things called, so it's also called air resistance. And you can reduce this by something called streamlining. You may have also heard making something more aerodynamic. Okay, that's why airplanes are so smooth in the front and the body is very long and sleek and it makes it more aerodynamic. So there's not a lot of drag and it can just move through the air very smoothly, okay? And it lowers the resistance or that fluid friction. That's why swimmers, usually if you're trying for speed, right? That's why swimmers want to wear very tight fitting suits because you don't want to wear like a big dress in the water, right? There's going to be a lot of drag. That's not very aerodynamic. Okay, so here's some ways to reduce friction. So, like in your car engine, right? We use things like lubricants. Okay, this is going to reduce the friction between moving parts. And you don't want friction in the engine because that causes breakdown and heat buildup, and particles can break off. And so we use motor oil. You can use wax for some other examples. There's grease. Another thing you can do is replacing sliding friction with rolling friction. So let's say you have that wooden block again, right? Now you want to lower the friction, put some wheels on it, make it roll instead, and that will help. Another example for that is using ball bearings in between wheels and axles. That really helps to reduce friction. You can also smooth surfaces. So this is where sanding a wood surface really makes it smoother, and it can cause things to move faster or more easily. And that will reduce the roughness. Well, let's say we want to do opposite, right? We don't want our car to roll down the hill, or we want to increase the friction on the road so people don't slide off, right, when they're going around a turn. So here's some ways you can increase the friction. So this would be making surfaces rougher. So you can add sand to icy roads, give it a little bit of grit, or you can add chains to your tire in the snow, and that will help make it or increase the friction rather, so you're not sliding all over the place. Or sometimes people wear gloves with grips so that you're not trying to slide all over whatever you're trying to hold on to. Another thing you can do is increase the force that's pushing on the surfaces, and causing the surfaces to get pushed together. So if you don't want your papers to fly away or slide off, you can use a paperweight, or you can just press harder on some sort of surface. So I'm going to include a link of this video right here. I'm not going to play the video because the audio doesn't work when I play it. So please click on the link to watch this video. It should really help clear up some of the notes that we just took. Please send me an email if you have any questions about this. I have included the assignment here in this. It's all together in one. So you're going to upload the file or take a picture of your work, or however else you want to do it. If you're having trouble with that, let me know. But it should be fine. So again, if you have any questions, let me know. And then eventually we're going to have a quiz on this and 7.4 notes, which I'll have a review for. Okay, see you guys.